It's time for the Red Line Review with Mike and Andy.
Nice guys never get the one they want.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 2 of the Red Line Review. I wasn't even planning on rhyming, but here we are. I am Mike along with my co-host Andy. Andy, speak up, say hello.
Hi, that was handy. I'm Andy. I meant to
Whereas,
rhyme.
yes, I felt that. And since we last spoke, the season is underway. We are off and running out the gates here. Definitely some interesting stories. The Connor Bedard debut. Rangers are off to a pretty good start. I'm pretty happy with how things are going. But there is one guy who's lighting the world on fire right now, and he's with your Leafs, your boy, Mr. Matthews. It's been an interesting week in Leafland, as it always is, and we're going to start with our new segment where our diehard Leaf fan Andy takes over and gives a rundown on the week that was, the week coming up, and just some general lamenting.
Time for Leafs Lament with Andy.
Boy, I tell you, the production value on this show is, it's at a level. I won't say what level, but it's, it's there.
Yeah,
But yeah, Andy, you were riled up. You're cautious as always, but heading into a new season, a few new players, big game against Montreal to start us off, and take it from there.
all right. Yes, the game against Montreal on Wednesday. That was a dicey game. I don't know if you watched that, Mike, but that was interesting. Leafs started dicey. They were down 2-0. They went up, and then Montreal came back, and they were losing by 2 near the end of the game, and it was just kind of disheartening to see. And then Matthews showed up.
When you're starting this season, you're looking at a team like the Habs, who quite frankly are in full on rebuild mode. They've certainly got some nice pieces, but you're sitting there opening night, so much hope, so much promise. You're down 2 Cobb. You should be down 3 Cobb if not for an offside review. And what's going through your head at that point?
Well, I mean, it's something that you're kind of used to if you're a Leaf fan, right? Like you've got that Carolina game where they lost to the Zamboni. We've been through all this stuff before, so I don't think it's ever. I don't think as a Leaf fan I've ever gone into a game thinking, "All right, we're going to kill this team," especially when you're facing Montreal. Montreal, Ottawa. It's always a fairly close game, but yeah, with high hopes.
A good rivalry. The standings don't matter, right?
Yeah.
Like at any time, anybody can win those games.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I was sort of flipping back and forth, and I was a little bit surprised, as you said, not surprised at the same time that was what was happening. But then they seemed to turn the corner after that.
Well, they started a little slow, and then, they kind of took over. I think they ended up doubling the shots that Montreal had. So, they did take it to them after the first period.
Which is what should happen.
Absolutely.
The Leafs are a far superior team at this point in time.
It's funny, though. They seem to have that issue with the first period where they just get off to a slow start. They get behind, and then they have to come out and kind of no holds barred in the second period. But it'd be nice to see them kind of start a game like that for once.
Now, what do you think that is? Normally, I think I've read a stat where when the home team has some sort of, whether it's the season opener or some other kind of pomp and circumstance, it's the team that's been sitting there waiting on the ice the whole time that tends to be a little flat-footed, but it seemed to be the reverse for that first game.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if underestimating the opponents. Is it the nerves? Is it the coaching? I have no idea what it is.
Okay. Well, they seem to turn the corner in one sense, came back, won the game for you in a shootout, I believe.
Yeah.
But how are you feeling about giving up a 5-burger to Montreal on opening night? I mean, boy, oh boy, the questions all off season, they got a little bigger, they got a little tougher, they added a little, more well-rounded scoring. But again, the question of defense, like what was your impressions of Klingberg and, just your goaltending and your defensive structure overall?
Well, I'll give you an impression of the goaltending. It was brutal. I think there was a couple of stinkers there. Samsonov, I think, has a 740 save percentage. I mean, that's hopefully going to go up.
It's early. It's
Yeah,
early.
it's early.
Shesterkin going into last night's game had a goals against of like 3-something and a save percentage in the mid to low eights. It's a couple of games in. Those things will balance themselves out.
Yeah, so the two games we've seen, Samsonov has kind of looked, a little iffy. The defense isn't great. I think we said that in our opening podcast, right? The defense is a little dicey. Klingberg looks a little dicey in the back end, but in the offensive zone, he looked great. Like on the power play, he was integral for a few of those goals. He looked really good in the offensive side. But
now, is he back there on the power play with Riley, or has he subbed in for Riley on that first unit?
He's taken over for Riley, so Riley's kind of been
wow
in the unit. Yeah.
How do you think Riley feels about that? He's been holding that spot for quite a few years there.
Sure, but I think that's just for a lack of any better option. Really, he doesn't have that big shot from the point. I think I assume he'd be fine with it. I don't know.
Yeah, you'll have to ask him next time you see him.
I'll ask Tessa next time I see her. Maybe she can.
And then they played Minnesota next, right?
Minnesota. That was a high score.
Tell me everything you can about Matt Zuccarello and everything he did, because I'm interested.
I believe he's 5'5". Let's think
on
that's
skates.
No, he played,
and his stick is 6'5".
Awfully big mustache. I was waiting for it.
Awfully big mustache.
Yeah, so they seem to have a pretty easy time with Minnesota. I didn't see a second of that game. I saw a few of the highlights. Matthews, I mean, what can you say about this guy?
Yeah, he really took over those first two games. You can see him like with healthy. He you can't stop him. He has that. He knows where to be. He has that shot, and he was just dialed in. Yeah, the game against Minnesota. Yeah, it was all Matthews. I mean, really, it's been Matthews and Nylander. These two wins in the last three games. Those are the guys who really have only showed up so far.
No Marner. Marner's been pretty quiet.
He's been quiet. He scored the winner against Montreal. Beautiful goal in the shootout.
Yeah,
which was really nice. And he had a couple of really nice assists. There was a goal by Matthews where he did a perfect forecheck and got it over to him. And yeah, he's shown up, but he has no goals yet. Tavares, I don't think, has a goal yet. I don't know. It's been 3 games, so it's really hard to kind of break down all this stuff.
And then last night, Connor Bedard and company show up in Toronto. Yeah, I think a bit of a surprising outcome given the state of both teams.
Well, Chicago's been they have 2 wins, I think, already, don't they?
They did. They beat Pittsburgh on opening night. To my delight.
You're not a Pittsburgh fan, or is it a Crosby thing?
No, I am not a Pittsburgh fan. I will talk I'm a diehard Rangers fan, so everybody in my division is my enemy. I respect you, but I don't like you.
Yeah, Bedard, you predicted, I believe, 100 points perhaps this year for Bedard?
Well, just to get in on a little bit of a side issue, I did have my hockey pool, and I ended up getting Bedard in the second round. It's a straight points pool. So I am all in on the Bedard train this year. I want all the highlights, the goals, the assists, the sellies, all of it. I am here for it and rooting it on, hopefully all the way to the top of the standings. Yeah, so I think he's going to be a big draw wherever he goes. I don't know how a kid that age deals with it. I know a few of them have over the years, but when you're getting on the ice in that situation in a mecca like Toronto, even skating around in the warm-ups, knowing that 20,000 people are watching everything you do, to see the magic. And I've only seen snippets so far, but on top of all the junior stuff, I mean, boy, it does not look like he's missed a step, and his edge work is incredible. His vision is incredible. His shot's incredible. And I'm very excited, and I'm sure you're as thrilled as I am that both him and Connor McDavid are in the West. So we can enjoy them once or twice a year, and then we can root for them the rest of the time.
Well, I do want to say, yeah, it must have been something for Bedard to be on the same ice as Drake Berehowski.
Did Berehowski play at Scotiabank Arena?
maybe the second time around, didn't they reacquire him later in his career? Perhaps he played.
Oh, you would know that far better than I would, sir.
I think, yeah, he had 6 penalty minutes and was a -4. So,
Two of those minuses while in the box somehow. But overall, like, are you happy with the week? What are your overall feelings? Generalization here.
it's been very sloppy. I think we've kind of expected them to give up a few goals. We expected the defense to be a bit of an issue. We got to be happy that Matthews is scoring, that Nylander looks great. A few guys that stick out. Domi hasn't really looked particularly effective. He's been on the ice for a few goals against. He's taken some bad penalties. Again, it's 3 games, so it's kind of silly to go into depth about this stuff.
Well, speaking of bad penalties, I was scrolling through a bit of the Twitterverse last night, and one of the names that was trending was Mr. Bertuzzi through Leafland, and it was not in a very positive way. It's very, it seemed like a lot of people seem to be quickly turning on this guy already. I guess he's missed a few wide open opportunities. He's taken a couple of dumb penalties. So you're mentioning Domi taking dumb penalties, Bertuzzi taking dumb penalties. I mean, what's going on here?
Well, that's kind of what they've always done, isn't it, though? Domi and Bertuzzi both take penalties. And when you're a Leaf, it seems to be amplified.
Well, I don't remember, when Bertuzzi was in Detroit and when he was in Boston, you definitely saw him as an agitator that could score. But I don't particularly remember that they had this big reputation of taking the dumb penalty at the wrong time.
Sure. So Bertuzzi, I think the main issue he's looked a little bit off being with Matthews and Marner. I don't know if his skill really kind of translates to playing with those guys. I don't know if maybe he's trying to do too much and he's kind of getting involved in a few extra little scrums. I've seen some, plays after the whistle that, again, I haven't watched him in Detroit. I haven't seen him much outside of Toronto. Maybe that wasn't his game, but definitely looks like he's trying to kind of instigate a few extra things here and there.
And I think when you get guys who are cut from the kind of cloth that Domi and Bertuzzi are from, being that they have that little bit of sandpaper to their game, I think there is an inclination when you come to a new team, especially an original 6 team, a place like Toronto, that you almost want to overstep yourself to really prove to everybody that you're worthy and that you're here to play and everything else. So maybe that can lead to some of these decisions that maybe don't work out as favorable as they had hoped when they get into them.
I mean, they're playing the same ice that Drake Barahowski skated on, so of course there's high expectations over there.
I don't have a Drake Barahowski sound effect. I think I may maybe for next week. I guess the big controversy, well, we'll add it in here. We were going to talk about it later, but now we're kind of on your Leaf subject here. The big talk of the town, the big talk of the country, this goal song. I've heard more Leaf goal songs than I've heard songs at a Grateful Dead concert the last week. What is going on here? They had the whole summer with a whole marketing team to come up with something, and now it just seems like they haven't made up their mind. Yeah. So let's start. So they opened up with that. It's like a German dance song. Do you remember the name of it?
The first one they had, I thought, was the Pursuit of Happiness one. The kid.
Right. And then it came out. There were some unfavorable lyrics in the song, I guess, a little bit further into the track. Yeah. And, people will comb through these things. A goal song is a very personal thing, and it represents you as a fan. So I get that. So that one. But again, why is this not figured out before the season? I would think if I was on that marketing team, if I'm going to think this is going to be the new goal song, I'm going to listen to that song front to back with the lyrics in front of me to make sure that we're good to go here. Okay, so that one's out the window.
That one's gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's next?
Then your aforementioned German I guess it's a German dance song. I've never heard of this. It's called Dub Dub.
Is it Dub Dub or Doob Doob? Because there's the two dots above the U.
Ooh.
Right? So I don't, you'll have to, people please write in, message us if I'm pronouncing it correctly or incorrectly. That one, I have to say, I didn't like for 2 reasons. It sounds a little 90s video game-ish, but not in a good way. I'm not saying it's a bad song. I'm just saying for a goal song. And The other thing, quite frankly, and we don't have the rights to play it, so I'm not going to get into that here, but it sounds a little New York Rangers goal songish to me. It's almost like they said to themselves in these meetings, the Rangers, who probably have the most famous goal song, maybe them and the Blackhawks, that we want this, in the same way when a good movie comes out, and then here comes three other movies that come out that are like cheap imitations of it over the next 2 or 3 years.
I mean, that song is, I don't understand it. That song is more lackluster than a Brett Hall back check.
I did have his Midas video that he handed out when you got your tires changed there. Probably a good like 6 or 7 watches back in the late 80s, early 90s. It was from 1991, called Hockey's Top Gun. Brett Hull, Hockey's Top Gun, back when he was still in St. Louis. Great pull, great ref. I do love a good Brett Hull ref. So overall, okay, so then we move on from the German dance track.
Sure.
And now we're getting into, we've worked through the minutia a little bit. We've worked through this, and now we come to Van Halen, Panama. I feel like this is the first time that they've come close to hitting the mark. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's still not anything like we were talking about the Tragically Hip or like a Canadian or Toronto band or something like that. So I'm still waiting for a good hip song or something.
Or Rush. I could see something like Rush.
Yeah, Toronto roots for sure. Something from Rush.
I think what they really need to do is they need to find something that's going to last. I think the more they change the song, the more they're cheapening the experience, because it's almost like people are waiting for that first goal to be like, what are they going to play tonight? Because if it's a song you hate, I love Van Halen. Panama's a great song, but there could be people out there going like, oh man, I hate that kind of music. And why are they playing that? And I don't like that for the goal song. You need something that's going to evoke crowd response, that's going to elevate the moment. And I think Panama is definitely a good start. Whether or not they're going to stick with that or not, we'll see. When is their next game? What's the week ahead looking like?
So Toronto is playing Florida next. They're in Florida on a road trip on Thursday.
And how are you feeling about that going into that game?
I feel good. I think a road trip.
Sorry, slip of the finger
right
there.
Into that one.
Fine line between stupid and clever.
So we have Florida on Thursday. We have Tampa on Saturday. And that would be the only 2 games before our next show.
So 2 games in the span of a week. Boy, I don't get the scheduling there. You would think at the beginning of the season when everyone is fresh is when you'd maybe have a little bit more of a consistent schedule. But as we all know, things like concerts and events and everything else can change how all that's laid out. But yeah, all right, we'll see where the Leafs are going to go. Like Matthews is, man, he is one impressive hockey player. Do you think he's going to hit 60 again this year?
If he's healthy, I think he absolutely will hit 60. I think he'll flirt with 70. I think you'll see mid to high 60s with a healthy season from Matthews.
At this rate, I'm going to put a big prediction out for the world here, and I'm not even a Leaf fan. By the All-Star break, so midway point, Austin Matthews will have 30 goals. You heard it here first. He will have 30, as long as he's healthy, he's going to have 30 goals or more by the All-Star break.
I'll take the over.
I like it.
Let's do it.
I like it.
Taking the over. And
okay, so now we're going to transition from talking about the Leafs, because Lord knows people don't talk about the Leafs enough, at least in the Canadian sports media. So let's move on to south of the border and move on to my team here, shall we?
Time for Ranger Rants.
So going into the season, you have a new coach, you've got a couple of new players, but they tend to, players who tend to shape out more the bottom of the lineup. The Rangers were going into the season with a lot of the same players who I like their lineup overall. I like that they're finally giving Lafreniere a long look on the right side, but they're going into Buffalo on that opening night. And I remember a few years ago when Vigneault came to the Rangers, who ended up getting them to a cup final that year. That first 10 games, they were awful. And a lot of it was just about learning the new structure with this new coach, this new system. So a lot of people were going into the season thinking, we could be looking at a similar situation. Not that we're going to get to the cup finals per se, but that it could be a few games before the Rangers really hit the ground running. Well, they walked into Buffalo, who, is supposed to be a very good team this year, and I'm sure is going to be a very good team. They're very good on paper. But the Rangers just took it to them. And they played one of the better games I've seen them play in the last few years in terms of complete structure, sound in all ends, good on faceoffs for the first time since probably 1940. Thank you, Mike Pekka, new assistant coach, teaching them the faceoffs there. But they walked into Buffalo and walked out with a 5-1 victory. And boy, oh boy, I cannot tell you that I don't know if I had a more exciting moment this week than the very first goal scored by Lafreniere, beautifully, seamlessly seeming to fit in with Philip Hito, who looks like a new man this year, and the Bread Man. Has the Bread Man finally found the two pieces that are going to play on his line with him? Lord, I hope so, because it's been one after another. There's been more people there than, people getting roses on The Bachelor. But so far, they walk out of Buffalo with what I consider to be a great victory, a great start. And then on a side note, right in between, Brendan Othman, their number one prospect, goes down to the AHL, scores 2 goals in the opener, including the tying goal with about a minute and a half left in the game. Lots to be excited about to start the season. So then you walk into Columbus. How are we feeling going into Columbus? We're feeling great. I'm excited. I sit down.
What happened?
And the
Mike?
Rangers lay a bit of an egg in that one. Igor wasn't his sharpest, and, Boone Jenner showed up and potted a trick on us. Speaking of hat tricks, Mr. Austin Matthews. They completely dominated the third period. They outshot them by, I think, like 15 or 20 shots in the third period, but it just wasn't enough. They walk out losing 5-3. Overall, I was expecting a few stumbling blocks along the way. So as much as I was excited from that first game, I felt a little underwhelmed, a little disappointed. But, a couple of goals called back along the way. You just kind of write that off and you move forward to the next game. So last night they're playing Arizona. And I think I always sort of underestimate Arizona. You see them on the schedule and you're kind of like, oh, well, that's a win, because they got this small market and this team that always seems to be in the lottery. But they're a sparky little team, I tell you. Logan Cooley in particular, boy, oh boy, he is going to be a fun hockey player to watch for many years to come. The Rangers, again, played a sound defensive game. A little bit of questionable refereeing once because a puck was going up the side to Panarin to walk in on a 2-on-1. The ref went to jump and it hit his skate and it stopped the whole thing. And then they called a very, very chintzy penalty on Lafreniere, and Ryan Lindgren was not happy about it and shot the puck against the boards, and they gave him 2 minutes. So here we are, end of the second period, start of the third, 5-on-3 for 2 minutes. And the Rangers stayed sound, stayed true to their system, kept the lanes closed. Overall, they killed that penalty. So with about 11, 12 minutes left, they went on the power play. And of course, leave it to Panarin and Fox, as they're always involved there, getting everybody set up, and Trocheck with the beautiful tip. And they walk out of there with a 2-1 victory. It was a much more Igor-like game, even with a little bit of the rumble in the jungle there at the end with Matt Dumba. Now, Matt Dumba didn't want any part of Shesterkin. Shesterkin was the one who jumped in front of him. But as soon as you have a guy whose hands are sort of around your goaltender's neck at the end of a game, there's going to be chaos, and credit to the Rangers, unlike years past where, guys would sort of sit back and watch guys fight instead of jumping in and helping out. Everybody jumped in to protect Igor, to get him off. Trouba looked like he wanted to kill Dumba, which, I think everybody wanted to see that fight at that point, but it was all for naught. Overall, a 2-1 record to start the season. I'm feeling pretty good about this team right now. I think there's a lot of competition ahead. This week coming up, they've got the Predators at home on Thursday night, always a tough opponent. And then they hit the road. Saturday, they're in Seattle. And then before our next show, actually the day of our next show, they're going to be in Calgary. So look at both of us. I was complaining about your team only having 2 games, and the Rangers only have 2 games this week. So yeah, I think overall, I like Laviolette's system. The 1-3-1 defensive system seems to work so far. I have no doubt that there are very affable and intelligent coaches out there who know how to work around these things. So we'll see how the Rangers adapt to that as the season goes on. But overall, a solid start. Your former Leaf Gustafsson, he's played pretty decently. I like him on that second power play unit. I'm really excited to see how things keep going here. The Rangers probably should have been 3-0, but give Columbus credit; they played a good game. And yeah, I'm a happy camper right now, and I'm excited the season started. The MSG's rocking. John Brancy came out and killed the anthem, and I'm jacked up.
Did you say they called a penalty against the Rangers? Oh my God, man. How did that happen? A 5-on-3. I thought the Leaf fans were the ones that are supposed to complain about that.
Well, we can all complain that Pittsburgh gets all the calls at least, right? I mean, so there's that.
Well, it will be nice to see when there's a little better competition, right? It's hard to really, get too much out of a Columbus or an Arizona game. So once the better matchups comes up, I think that'll be kind of nice to see.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these bottom teams are really, I don't see a lot of teams necessarily tanking, at least right now, that look like, they're just giving it in. Maybe Philadelphia, but who knows? I mean, overall, the league is off to a red hot start. Matthews, as we said, is the hottest player in the league at this point. Let's have a quick look at the standings here. So, yeah, looking at the Atlantic Division, surprise, surprise, the team that I barely mentioned in the opening episode, Boston, out the gate at 2-0. It's early, but boy, oh boy, look at the Leafs all the way down in fourth there.
First in goals, last in goals against. There you go.
But yeah, I'd say so far, Florida and Buffalo are off to a little bit of a slow start out the gate. Pretty much, I guess the Devils maybe are a little bit slow out of the gate at 1-1-1. They've lost to a couple of, what you would call bottom feeder teams. And then Colorado doing its thing over in the West and the Central. Arizona, Nashville, teams like that. Even though it's 3 games into the season, most divisions look like how they probably are going to look in one facet or another most of the way, with the exception of, I would say, the Pacific. Edmonton starting out 0-2. That is a team that just does not know how to get out of its own way.
I think we talked about that the first show too. The goaltending and the defense. I mean, they can't keep the puck out of the net, and they've really done nothing to solve that situation in I don't know how many years.
They have pinned their hopes on a few high draft picks, and they seem to be developing on the back end, like Bouchard and guys like that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not worried about Edmonton. I'd never be happy as a fan of a team to start 0-2 out the gate. You never want to start that way, but it's a long season. Connor McDavid is still the best player on the planet. They're going to be all right. I'm not worried about them in the long run. Other than that, I mean, there hasn't been too much going on. I did want to say I'd be remiss if I didn't mention for the Rangers-Sabres game, the home opener, they did a beautiful tribute to Rick Jeanneret, the play-by-play guy for the Sabres for many, many years, who is just one of the greatest of all time. And they had a great tribute to him before the game. And also we want to send our shout-outs to Mr. Barry Melrose, who I know is going through a little bit of a tough time right now medically, and Melrose in his own right has a lot of stories and a lot of legendary moments in the NHL, and everybody here's thinking about him and hope things start to turn for the better. Yeah, overall it's been a fun season. There hasn't been any, touch wood, no crippling injury so far to anybody. I know a few guys are banged up, but no major injuries. Everything's off and running, and yeah, I'm excited.
Oh yeah. It's going to be good. I think we're going to have a great season of hockey. Bedard is hard not to keep your eyes off of this kid and the ratings that he's getting. I think it's going to be pretty great for the NHL.
Yeah, and I have to check when the Rangers get to play Chicago, because I am definitely looking forward to watching that game. It's one of those games where I kind of hope maybe Jonathan Quick's in net and we can win the game like 6-5 and Bedard has 5 points. So I still get the win, still get to see Bedard do a little magic, because the Rangers have been the victim a few times of being on the highlight reel with some of these upper echelon guys. McDavid walked right through the whole Rangers team last year to tie the game out in Edmonton, but I digress on that. But anything else you want to add to the beautiful people out there, Andy?
No, I think I got my 2 Drake Barahowski references in, so that was
There is a quota. There is a weekly quota. You have to think of it a new old Leaf every week
New
and
old
interject
Every
them
week.
somehow.
Done.
But you can get a hold of us. We're going to start doing a mailbag. Our email address is redlinereviewpodcast@gmail.com. You heard that right. Someone else took redlinereview@gmail.com. Unbelievable, folks. But here we are, redlinereviewpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your questions, and we are a new burgeoning show. So if you send one in, there's a very good chance it's going to get read on the air. That's about it from my end. Andy, do you have anything else you want to add to the people out there?
No. See you later.
All right. Well, for Mr. Andy, I am Mike. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the week, and let's go Rangers.